Hey, y'all. Many of you have asked how I got started in PR and asked about tips on pitching yourself or your own clients to the media, especially online secular publications. Before I niched down to podcast pitching, I used to pitch clients to all media, podcasts, publications, and TV. So today, I'm so thrilled to share an interview from 2 years ago where my PR mentor, Brittney Lynn, interviewed me for her Human Connection podcast. I enrolled in Brittney's Impact and Influence PR course a couple years ago and had great success for my clients, and she invited me as a guest so we could talk all about getting started pitching the media. We talk a lot about using the free HARO service, which, if you've never heard of it, it's Help a Reporter Out, and it's how I've connected with journalists to land client interviews and mentions in online publications like Women's Day, Real Simple, Authority Magazine, Shondaland, and American Express Business. If you're a parenting or lifestyle blogger, a service provider, business coach, mental health professional, podcaster, all those things in addition to being an author, you will discover all kinds of press opportunities through the HARO service. And I'll follow up soon with another episode on how that works. So I'm re-airing this interview on my show because I know you all will love the PR nuggets that Brittney and I both share. And right now, she's currently living the RV life, traveling the country with her husband and 2 pups, while also running her PR agency. So it's a little difficult for her to record a new interview with me. But Brittney and I both share the love of repurposing content. So this is a great example of doing that with your podcast interviews. So now I am going to have to put a disclaimer on this episode because, again, it was 2 years ago, long before I became a podcast host and long before I knew the importance of having a USB microphone in a super quiet, non-echoey environment. Yikes. I apologize for how my side of the interview sounds, but hopefully the incredible content we both share makes up for it. Since this interview, I've had the honor of getting to meet Brittney in person and also do some contract work with her phenomenal agency helping pitch her entrepreneur clients to podcasts, publications, and TV. And I learned so much from my time at her agency. And I can't wait for you to learn from Brittney too. So let's get to it. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Book Marketing Mania podcast. I'm your host, Kim Stewart, and I'm so glad you're tuning in today.
Hey, Kim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brittney. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on. So Kim has been an email subscriber of mine, and then we got connected because we actually live very close to each other physically. We were going to be meeting up, and then COVID-19 hit. So we're just waiting to meet each other in person. But Kim actually has enrolled into my course, Impact and Influence, which is my online course that teaches you how to PR ready your brand. And Kim has an interesting take on the course because she actually started implementing PR strategies on behalf of her clients. So she has not been pitching and DIYing for herself, but she has been offering it as a service to her clients. So I wanted to invite her onto the podcast, just talk about that experience, talk about her business and how it's kind of evolved over time, and just have a casual conversation. So if you could share, where you kind of started from with your business, when you started, what services you had offered, and then kind of how you started incorporating PR.
Yeah, you bet. So my background is in corporate marketing, IT corporate marketing. And about 5 years ago, I kind of felt like I was going to write a book. I thought that was a nice goal for myself. And so I went to a writing conference and I just was engrossed in all the marketing stuff and just how everybody I met that were writers already and speakers and different people like that, they loved what they did, but they didn't like the marketing part of it. And so they were just all like, oh, how do I market my book? How do I get new readers and things like that? And I just kept finding myself sharing what I knew with them. And I was like, this is so great. I can help people do this. Like, this is definitely a calling of mine. And so I kind of dove into helping authors exclusively over the last couple of years, pretty much anything like their social media, their email marketing. And so I've been doing that for a couple of years, helping lots of book launches was primarily my service there for a while.
And then just kind of trying to lean a little bit more into the marketing and how it's changed. Our landscape has gone more to the podcast and publications. And, it used to be just guest blogging was a big deal just to get your message out on other people's platforms and reach their readers. And now, of course, it's so different with podcast and publications. So I've started wanting to learn more about that and offer it more as a service to my clients. And I just didn't have the experience at all. So I kind of started DIYing it and listening to your podcast and reading the blog and just learning on my own. And, was able to do some things on a small level, but it really took investing in the course and getting help from you to kind of step it up and be able to just really be intentional and strategic about, where we want to go and who we want to reach and how can we reach them and where's the best places to go. So that's kind of where I landed, I guess, at the end of the last year was when you and I had connected and was asking you more about PR because you had been doing that for a while. And I love to learn. So I definitely consumed all your free content that you have.
Yeah.
But then I still was like, I had started doing some reactive pitching for my clients. And so answering the HARO request, which I know you've talked about that on the podcast, to help a reporter out. And just kind of started throwing things out there, just kind of that throw the spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks kind of attitude, and didn't have a real strategy about it. And so I probably did, once I decided to do that at the end of the year, I probably threw out, I don't know, maybe 10 pitches that way and got crickets, nothing. So I was like, oh, I need to go learn from somebody and really figure this out strategically because I love strategy. I love figuring all that. And I have great administrative skills, and those combined are great for PR, but I just didn't know really how to go about doing it. So that's whenever I joined the course.
Yeah. So let's talk about, what was it that kind of drew you to PR? Like, what about it did you like that was intriguing to you? It kind of sounds like whenever you first went to that conference, like what was intriguing to you is like, oh, I have these marketing skills that I could share with these authors, but I would love to know kind of what was going on in your brain when it was like, oh, PR, like what was about it that stuck out to you?
I love trying to think of ways for whether it's authors, podcasters, coaches, those are primarily who I work with now, but just ways for them to get their message out there. So they have something, a burning on their heart that they want to share, whether it's a book or a service they offer, something that they're trying to reach new people to, their target clients with, and just trying to figure out how to do that. Just always kind of fell under that PR angle of pitching to podcast or pitching to media or pitching to TV. It's just, that's where your people are that you're trying to reach. And that's the easiest way to go after them. And again, I just like the strategic, administrative angle of it. And I love marketing and I love connecting people. And so I kind of was like, there we go. You found these people that have the listeners that you're trying to reach out to or the readers. And so you want to connect people. And like, that's what I love doing at conferences. I'll meet somebody and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've got to introduce you to this person because y'all will click and you serve the same listeners or somehow complement each other. And yeah, so I love that. And I feel like that's all under that PR umbrella is all the marketing and the strategy, administration, and definitely connecting people. So yeah, I think that's what really kind of drew me into that's the direction I need to go. And of course, again, just how things have changed with more podcasts being out there, more publications, having opportunities for you to guest post on. So it's not just guest blogging, which is where I came from. That was the only way to reach out to other readers.
Right. And I think it's important to point out the networking part of it, of like, meeting people and just like naturally wanting to be like, oh, I should introduce you to so-and-so. Like that is where I thrive. Like that's just, if I could just go to conferences and just network all of the time. And I don't even like to say networking because like traditional networking, like going to a meetup, which is actually kind of how I got one of my very first clients, but like it was torture because I didn't know anyone. Like I just felt it's like weird and networking and like handing out business cards and all that kind of stuff. But at these more kind of entrepreneurial conferences, the vibe is a little bit different, a little bit more inviting and true, someone that is going to succeed with PR, especially offering PR as a service. It is that feeling of like, you want to help connect other people. That's really what it is. We're connecting our clients with journalists, with podcast hosts, with other people who would be beneficial to know. That is really what it is all about. It's all about who you know. So, anytime anyone thrives in that sort of environment, I'm like, you should think about PR because that is basically like what we do all day, every day. I want to talk about whenever you first started pitching your clients, and kind of what were some hurdles? It kind of sounds like in the beginning, it was like you were hearing crickets, and then it was like, okay, like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? So what was it like to get started? What was kind of the biggest hurdle to get over to get from like not getting any responses to those first few responses? Because you've done like amazing. Kim always shares in the Facebook group of all of the amazing media hits that she's getting for her clients. So what was kind of like a mindset shift? What was the change that you had to make in your mind whenever you started landing media hits?
I think I was just realizing that I truly needed some extra help because, like I said, I love to learn, and I could go, scour the internet or listen to podcasts and learn myself and implement a lot of things. But I really felt like this particular service, I needed some extra support on. So with the HARO pitches, I thought I was doing it the correct way, or I shouldn't say the correct way, but just, a way that was going to get yeses. And I obviously wasn't, because I was not getting anything at all. And so I knew that there had to be a better way to go about that, because I knew people were getting in the media. And that was where I was focusing, was getting my clients into the media for publications. And, you see people's names pop up and you see those logos on everybody's website. So you're like, I know people are getting in the media. So what am I doing wrong? And I think that's when I said, I definitely need some extra help. I don't want to just keep DIY and not getting the results for my clients. And so that's when I found out about your course and looked into it. It was like, this is exactly what I need to kind of walk through the steps of how to do it. But then also just that you're so active in there and you offer the office hours. And so that's what I knew. Like, I needed somebody that I could ask questions of, and then have a community there that's doing the same thing and get to bounce ideas off of them. And I just knew I had to, like, if I was going to do this, I had to be super intentional. And so, like, your office hours are on my calendar. Like, it's a non-negotiable on my calendar, because I know I can pick your brain and who gets to do that. And just being very strategic about it, like just learning, not just reacting to everything that comes across HARO or you hear about, because maybe it's not really where your ideal readers are. So just being super strategic about the publications you're going after and the journalist, and kind of knowing that kind of stuff that I didn't know before, and doing a little bit more research on it that I just hadn't done and didn't know how to do it in the most effective way, and not just spend hours and hours, wasting time.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing where people start, you see your competitors, you see these other people that are in, that have similar audiences to you. And you're like, wow, they're getting featured on all these places. And so you're just like, yeah, I should be there too. I should be pitching myself too. But you do want to, before you kind of start implementing, and I shared this in one of my podcast episodes. It's called, I think, the five things you need to do before you start implementing a PR strategy. I'll link to that episode in the show notes. You really want to step back and be like, okay, what are my goals? Like, what is it that I'm trying to get forward and get out in front of a bigger audience? And then two, like you said, does my ideal audience spend time reading these places, listening to these podcasts, watching these, TV channels, or do they not? Because like you said, you could really waste your time getting featured in places where maybe your ideal audience doesn't read or listen to or watch. And then it's like, it doesn't really serve the purpose of like trying to drive more traffic to your website, trying to get more email subscribers. And so I think that that's sometimes where people miss the mark, because it's like, oh, like any publicity is good publicity. And I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, because again, it can be great to get on a local TV segment, but if your audience isn't watching that, if that's not part of thinking about the strategic goals, that's what I love. And what I think the reason why you have had a lot of success is that you really bring a strategic mind to it, which you really have to see, okay, are these things worth going after, or are these things not worth going after? What has been the feedback from your clients? Like, how did you start? Do you just start doing it on your own and then kind of tell them like, hey, I pitched you for this and you got in? Or how did you kind of communicate that to your clients?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. So some of them, I've been letting them know, hey, there's this opportunity that's come up, and I just take it on myself. I do everything for them, but I let them know, hey, this opportunity's come up. Can you give me a little bit of feedback on these questions that they have? Because sometimes I have it, and I know it from their archives, but sometimes I don't. And so I'm just like, we got to be quick. We got to be on this. You got to get me this feedback ASAP.
Yeah.
And so we've done it like that. And then when it goes out, it's so great when we get a yes or when we see it in the publication. And some of them have been more what I consider, like we all talk about surprise and delight your clients. And so I've had a couple of those with HARO too that have been wins, and my clients have been so excited that, because I didn't tell them I was doing anything, because I was like, I don't need to tell them anything. I'm just going to submit it and we'll just see what happens. And then once it pops up, they were, very happy. But some of my clients have been really happy with the fact that they feel like being in a publication, they're like recognized as an expert now, even though they're an expert in their own sphere of influence. And they are truly experts, but I think just having somebody else, a stranger, pick them out of who knows how many pitches they got for that particular article, and for them to go, okay, I like what they say. They're obviously an expert in this field and we want to put them in our publication. And so I think it kind of gave them that validation too.
Yeah. And I think that that's a big thing. That's a lot of times whenever, retainer clients are coming our way, they are really trying to up level and become that go-to known expert in their industry. And that's kind of how they're wanting to leverage press. So while of course it is about, more traffic to your website and trying to get more email subscribers and hopefully eventually more sales, sometimes it's more about that brand awareness and getting your name out there. PR also really goes hand in hand with SEO as well. So it's the more that you are featured on these prominent publications and podcasts and that are linking back to your website as a resource, the more that Google rewards you and is like, oh, this person's been on Forbes, this person's been on Fast Company, like prominent websites are featuring this person. They must be an expert in their industry. They should rank higher in the search results. So it's kind of all of these different things combined. And I love that that's really, they're seeing value in that. And especially from authors, since that's really who you've honed in on working on, really being seen as that expert in whatever industry of book that they write about, that can be uber valuable. And also a lot of this stuff has longevity. It lasts forever. You get to keep those press logos forever. You were mentioned by Forbes, you were mentioned by Fast Company or, whatever website. So it has that long-term brand awareness and brand trust as well. I would love it if you shared, if you could go back to tell yourself, like whenever you were first getting started pitching, like what is one thing that you wish you would have known then that you know now?
Well, I'm going to say two things.
Okay, just sure.
Most important, I would say, find somebody that's done it and has experience pitching in the outlets you're going to pitch to. I really think that would have been so much better in my beginning and saved me so much more time. And I would have gotten a lot better results a lot quicker and just a lot better, gotten great results, period. Would have been so much more helpful if I had really thought through that and thought I need to just find somebody who's been there, done that, who knows this industry, who knows TV, who knows podcast pitching, publication pitching, and can kind of show me the ropes and be like, here's the best, most effective way to do it and be strategic and intentional about it. That would have helped me so much. The second thing I was going to say, and I know you've probably talked about this a lot on your podcast too, I know, but it's just that it's a long game, right? It's not an overnight, you pitch and you just get all this success. It's like, we have this long roadway of like podcasts, you might pitch them, but then they may not even get you on the podcast for months. And then it's like several months after that before it goes live. And the publications are much quicker, but sometimes you don't hear back from them. And just that it's not this overnight, you're just going to go boom, tomorrow have all these hits and just, be patient with it and time it'll come.
I think that's really important because it can seem like from an outsider's view, it can seem like it happens overnight. Like once you're sharing, like your client sharing, like, oh, I've been featured here, like to the audience, it's like, oh my gosh, this is all happening overnight. But they don't know how many times you've pitched them. They don't know, of all the pitches that didn't land, that didn't get a yes. And one of the biggest things that I try to reiterate to people is if you are only getting yeses, then you're not pitching enough. You should be getting no's. You should be getting no responses. That's the nature of this industry is you're going to pitch out topic ideas, whether it's you're reacting to something like a HARO, which again, help a reporter out. I've talked about it a ton, I feel like, on the podcast. I have a blog post about it, brittneylynn.com/HARO, if you want to learn more about what this free resource is. But I highly recommend, signing up for it because it's one of the best ways to get started with PR and start submitting inquiries. So side note, done.
Mm-hmm.
But it really, if you're only getting yeses, you're probably not pitching enough. So you should be getting no's. You should be getting not right now. A lot of times that's what happens with us. We get outright no's. And what's interesting, I'll just share this like real-time example, which is just funny and it's just the epitome of what this industry is. So we had pitched a topic idea to a journalist at Fast Company for a topic for one of our clients. And she, in a way, like she kind of owed us because she had done a phone interview with one of our clients for one of her articles. So whenever it's getting to the point where you have a phone interview, most times you're going to be featured. It's a little bit more rare if your interview gets cut, if you've gotten to the point where you're talking on the phone with a journalist. So the conversation went great. Like it was wonderful. We were like, okay, just can't wait till this comes out. Article comes out and our client isn't featured and we're upset. We're like, what? Like you had a great conversation, like it got cut. Now, from the journalist's perspective, they send it then to their editor. And sometimes their editor has to cut down things, whether it's for word count, different reasons why. So a lot of times it's not the journalist's fault. It can be the editor's fault. So we went back to this person. We're going to give her the benefit of the doubt. And we're like, hey, saw that the piece came out, disappointed that our client wasn't mentioned in it. But like, here is another idea that we have if you want to work on it. She turned it down. She was like, oh, this topic is like a little overused, so I'll pass for now, but I'll keep your person in mind. We're like, okay, great. Literally 3 minutes later, an editor at Fast Company replies back to our same topic pitch, the one that she just said was overused, and was like, yes, great. Can your client write this article and have it be bylined by her? So it's like it's a contributor article. Okay, so same publication. A writer is like, this topic is overused. And the editor is like, this topic is great. So sometimes it's just, we could have taken that no, and it's like, okay, like, can the idea, like, don't pitch it anywhere else. But then we wouldn't have gotten it featured, and now it's like, we're working on the article, we're writing it up, we're working with our client on it. So I just wanted to share that as like a real life example of sometimes you can turn no's into yeses. Sometimes it's a no, not right now. Sometimes it's literally just like the day of the week and the time that you're hitting someone's inbox. And if you just resend it again, I mean, there's just so many just different reasons as to why somebody says no. And so I really want to push and encourage people to put yourself out there, like make it a challenge to get more no's, because the more no's that you get, it's leading you to your next yes. That's probably like some like quote from some like business person. I don't know. I don't mean to take that as my own. So if it is a direct quote from somebody, I apologize. Yeah. So I love that you shared that. And, the shortening up the time, like whenever I want to learn anything new, in the beginning of my business, I would just DIY and I would like search the ends of Google and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually, once I started investing in myself and investing in, and obviously strategically, like you shouldn't be going out and buying every single course out there, but this was a course that was hitting you at a time where it was like, okay, I want to start focusing on this. This monetarily makes sense for me to start investing in this. And sometimes you just need to shorten the amount of time because your time is worth something. And so if you can invest into a course where it can just teach you something of everything that you need to know, packaged up all nicely, the better it is for you.
Yes. Oh, I was just thinking, there's just so many little tips and tricks that you are just take, I'm sure, second nature, right? And that somebody else might not think it's that big of a deal. But when you're in the weeds doing it and you don't know those things, I mean, there's been so many things that have come up on our weekly office hours that I'm like, hey, what's this? And you're like, oh, well, let me show you, blah, blah, blah. And you show me right away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that just changed my world. Like just getting that kind of help has been so instrumental for sure.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing too, is like, I like having the course, and the weekly office hours was something that I started adding more recently. And I think it's gone really well because it gives me a way to just like showcase my brain of like how I search for things and how we research and how we find journalists and how we come up with ideas. And it's just so much of an easier way to be just like, oh, let me share my screen. Here is how my brain works. This is what I would type in. And we just had one recently where you were like, oh,
yes.
Oh my God, I never even thought.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm still blown away by that. That's what I think about it. I know, but even like when I was telling you about, another success that we had come out this week for a client, and I love repurposing content and maximizing content in people's archives. I mean, that's just my favorite thing ever. And so, it's so natural. A lot of people do that nowadays for like repurposing to social media and things like that. But when we were talking through it all was like, okay, well, I did this for this particular publication. And you were like, well, gosh, that's so timely. Why don't you pitch it to TV today? And I'm like, well, I didn't even think of that. Like, I don't have any experience with TV, but I just would have never thought about that. And so, yeah, I just appreciated your brain on it because you were just like, yeah, well, just do it. And this is how you do it. And of course, you got a whole module in the course on that I haven't taken. But yeah, I so appreciate that because it's just, yeah, how can we maximize these opportunities? And I appreciate you saying that even though you get a no, it doesn't mean no forever. And it doesn't mean that somebody else won't say yes to this exact same thing. And learning that, yeah, different people, different publications can talk about the same thing. So it's not like you can't repurpose it and use it again. So that's been really helpful to learn.
Yeah, and it's been interesting as of right now with like TV in particular. We've been pitching clients and they've been all doing it from Skype interviews from home. And we have been able to pitch the same topic to multiple stations because the fact is, if you live in LA, you're not going to be watching the local news in Austin. So you're going to be hitting different audiences. So we're able to kind of mass pitch out those topic ideas for TV in particular, because each of these networks are looking for content. Everybody is filming from home as of right now. And I think even for the future, whenever we kind of get back to quote unquote normal life, and who really knows like what that looks like or when that's happening, or if that's happening by the time this episode comes out, like, I don't think so, but we'll see. But I think that the COVID-19 situation has made media, in particular TV, kind of shift more because they had to work from their homes. They had to interview people remotely. So I think that when we go back to normal life, I'm hoping that they will still be more open to doing more remote interviews because it gives them a lot more access to a lot more people across the world to get in front of their viewers. Whereas before they did some remote interviews, but it was more of a hassle because it was like, oh, we got to figure out all the tech of this. Well, then they were forced to figure out all of the tech. And now it's like, okay, now that we have it all figured out, I'm sure they're still going to bring in people into the studio eventually, and like it'll go back a little bit to normal. But that's just an example of like repurposing something multiple times to where you're not having to come up with 700 different topics to pitch yourself on all of the time. It's like, let's hone in on a few topics, pitch those out, see where those land. And a lot of times for TV pitches, we'll kind of repurpose them into an online publication pitch or vice versa. If we see something hit really well and we're like, oh, could we just tweak this a little bit? So it's taking the same concepts and repurposing it. And then, of course, using that as blog posts for your website, using it as podcast episodes, using it as social media content. I don't want anyone just coming up with topics that don't lead anywhere, that can't be repurposed. Because again, I understand for business owners, PR is only one small piece of your business, and you have all these other tasks to focus on. So I really like to try to make it as easy as possible for people to understand. These are how you could repurpose things. I would love it if you answered, for anyone that's on the fence about PR, and like, is this right for me? Is this going to help me? Or maybe there's people listening that it's like, okay, I'm into PR and like, I understand the value of that, but like, I'm a little nervous about joining the course. Like, if I'm ready, is this for me? What would be, your piece of advice that you would offer those people that are maybe on the fence? Because I know even at the time, whenever you enrolled, we and you had a conversation of like, you were a little bit of on the fence of like, oh, should I join it? Like, I don't know. So what would you say to those people?
Well, so I just reached out to you and asked, was able to ask those questions. Like, these are the questions I have. This is how I work as a service provider. This is who I serve. this is what I'm thinking, would the course help me? And so I could ask you those questions. And that was so helpful to do that. I'm trying to think. So, I mean, gosh, I would just say, just do it, right? I want to just tell people, just do it. I just cannot emphasize enough how much I've learned in the course.
I promise, guys, I'm not paying her to say that.
That's what I want to tell everybody. Like that's what because I was sharing with you in the beginning. Like I wanted to share like my hero story of before the course where I was pitching and pitching and pitching and getting crickets. And then I signed up for the course. And again, this is not Brittney did not ask me to say this. I just wanted to share.
No, I didn't.
I signed up for her course and I have been pitching HARO and pitched like, I think 15 things have been sent out for responding to HARO requests. And I've had 11 yeses that have already been published. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. What I've learned.
That is insane. This is the first I'm learning about this. Oh my gosh.
Shared this with you at all, but, I mean, I've shared some wins here and there, but yeah, I mean, I was just looking at that going, that just blows my mind. I would have never been able to do that. So, I think if you want to get the success and you want to meet those goals, if you have the goals in place, and I love how you've done some master classes on that. I know you've got Pitch Fest coming up. I mean, you have a lot of free resources out there that somebody could go through and kind of put their plan together. But then how are you going to execute that plan? And, what is your plan? What is your plan to execute your own plan? And I think that, once they look into the course, they're going to realize that this is for them. And so, I just can't say enough about it. But, they could be like me and you used to be, of go out there and just go absorb all the free stuff and you're going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But you might waste a lot of time like I did. So I wouldn't recommend that path. But I'm happy to answer any questions. If anybody has any questions about your course and how it all works. And if they want to figure out if that's for them as a service provider. I don't know a lot about pitching myself, obviously, but yeah, I can't recommend it enough. And we were talking about HARO and repurposing content. And, that's part of the course. You go through like how you keep track of everything. And that's the other thing I didn't do prior to the course. It was like, I was trying to remember everything. I had it in my email, but I didn't have a real system for it. And so going and seeing what did I send? And then what happens is the publication, unless they do a full on article, they're usually just pulling a piece of that out for their publication. And so you've got this piece of content, and you're like, wait, there's all this other rich content in here too that we could repurpose and send somewhere else. And so that helped me in the course, learn how to do that too. So yeah, I can't say enough about it. I really think that it's just the most effective way to get your message out there. And I think like right now for authors, and I know you've worked with authors too, is summer is usually when they're having all their conferences. And I know a lot of them, may be online or may be postponed, but this is usually just the time that authors are learning about how they write their book proposals and they're pitching themselves to publishers. And that's what publishers want to see. They want to see, well, how are you going to get the word out about your book? And what have you been doing prior to now to get the word out about your message? And if they see that you've been doing some of these things that you learn about in the course and how to pitch yourself and get a media or podcast or, even on TV, they'll just be blown away, I think, and be like, okay, you've got a platform. You're building your platform. You may not have this huge platform, but you're building it and you're reaching your readers. So absolutely, I want to invest in you and have your book in with my publishing company. So that's where I come from is, the author background. So I can't say enough about it. Just hands down, do it.
It's a good point that you make, because I think a lot of times people start media pitching, they kind of think about it too late. They're like, oh, I can't be mentioned in the media until I have a book. And it's like, no, being in the media can help you land a book because from a publisher perspective, and again, like it depends, like you can self-publish. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get books published now. But if you are trying to get an agent and then talk about it with a publisher, a lot of times they don't take chances often on a nobody that doesn't have any sort of platform. They want to know that if they're going to put their stamp of approval and publish a book, that the book is going to sell. So a lot of times they want to see that you already have a platform, meaning that you have blog readers, that you have podcast subscribers, that you have an email list, that you have social media, a bigger social media following. And again, of course, you can self-publish a book and you don't have to have any people, following you, but it's going to be much harder for you to sell more of the book because you don't have a platform. So it's interesting because you kind of think about PR from both sides of like PR helps get the book out, but also PR can help you build up your platform for you to be able to pitch your book, to get it published, to then even get it even more exposed. So I think a lot of people hesitate or think they're just not ready for visibility in PR. And I'm like, you should just always be out there. Like, you can always be out there. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a message that they want to share. And so like now is the time to prioritize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you said something about self-publishing, because a lot of the authors I work with, they are traditionally published. And so when they have a book launch, they've got a real intense effort from their publisher's PR firm to get the word out. But then once that kind of contract is up, then they're trying to figure out, well, how do I keep getting the word out about my books?
How do I keep up the momentum? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for self-publishing, I think that's the key, is that we haven't talked about this, but I mean, just knowing, aside from a service provider, if you use a service provider, but obviously with your course, they can learn how to do everything on their own. And so I think that's what people think when they're self-publishing. They're thinking, well, I'm not going to have anybody help me with my marketing because I don't have a PR firm hooked up with a publisher. But it's like, you don't need that. Like, this is free marketing that you can do for yourself. You just might need a little help in learning how to do it and how to do it effectively.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for you guys listening, I think, the value that we've shared and what we've talked about during this episode, whether you are looking to DIY your own PR and you're like, okay, I wanted to take this on and do this myself. Or if perhaps maybe you have a team member that is a part of your team who maybe they're a marketing assistant, a virtual assistant, who maybe they could go through the course. We have people that have done that in the course, who, you buy the course for them, they go through it, and then they are representing you. And I will let both of you into the Facebook group so you can come to the office hours if you would like. Or, for people like Kim who are just solely offering it as a service, really any of those types of people. If you are looking to get more visible and to grow, your impact and influence, this is the course to join. I teach you everything, and you also get access to me, which I know is really great. And again, I have a lot of free stuff out there. Pitch Fest is my free challenge. I have free pitch templates out there, and you can definitely you can start implementing for free. And there are questions that come up, and there's sometimes that you want access to somebody that knows and can get feedback. And especially with media pitching, things are always changing in the media. There's different seasons. We had whenever COVID hit, like, everything halted and then shifted, and like we had to change all of our angles. And so our students had access to me to be able to ask, like, how do I pitch during this time? Like, what do I do? Which that is obviously not something that I could have prepared for in the course. Like, I didn't know that was going to happen. And I mean, it's same things, it's election season that's coming up, and that kind of changes kind of angles and pitching and like how to best get into the media during that time. So that's kind of why the group and the office hour calls are there. So I can kind of support you in real time. And I just can't believe that you've gotten 11 out of 15. Like, that is amazing. You are crushing it.
Yeah, it's been really amazing. It's so fun. Yeah, I can't recommend enough. And that's what I mean. Like, by free, I'm like comparing that to like paying for Facebook ads, or, paying for a PR firm that not in your budget. You don't have to do those things.
Right.
You can come learn how to do it yourself in the course. Or like you said, if you're, a service provider like me, or if you want to do it, if you just have one client, your client wants to pay and get to come and take advantage of it, or doesn't want to be any part of it and just wants to pay for their assistant. Yeah. It'd be great. And then you can just implement it afterwards for free. And then you just never know how you can reach people and what different avenues there are out there. It's just fun to try it and see what works, and you have nothing to lose.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I taught you things. I taught you how to be more efficient and, tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff, but you did the work, like, you implement it. Like, this is you. So I just want to give you congratulations as well, because this all came from you. Like, you sent those pitches out, you made those connections with those journalists, you followed up with people. This all came from you. And I just want to congratulate you for that, because again, like, some people in the course aren't having the same as, successes or getting as mentioned as frequently. So it really is, you do have to put in the work. You have to take the course and then implement, which is hard for people to do. But if you do it, can have results like Kim. So I just want to...
Oh, thank you.
Okay, who's excited to start pitching yourself or your clients to the media? I highly encourage you to check out Brittney's Impact and Influence course and her Human Connection podcast, and I will link to both of those in the show notes. And also, let me know if you have any questions. I'm thinking maybe a future podcast episode or even a video tutorial of how HARO works and how I've responded and gotten mentions for my clients might be helpful. Or if you have any questions about PR, just shoot me a DM on Instagram at KimStuInspired. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks to help you market your book one podcast at a time.